I guess the most important thing is in case there's maybe like one person who might not know who you are in this industry. How did you get started? How did you get into digital marketing? How did you get in SEO?
Yeah, so I got in 21-ish years ago. I started an online website. It was a job board. I couldn't find a job, so I decided to start a job board. Terrible reason to start a website. And I paid a marketing firm to help me get traffic. Got little to no results, and I was broke, frustrated, had no choice but to figure it out and learn it on my own.
Very nice. So you built out this job board. Did that end up being a success, or did you have to kind of iterate and
No,
build
no,
more
no.
businesses?
That job board failed miserably. I got good traffic eventually. I cracked the traffic nut, learned how to do it, and then still made no money. I didn't understand monetization at that time and how to do monetization. And a job board is a little bit difficult because it's a chicken or egg scenario. It's a marketplace where you need both sides, so that makes it a little bit more tough. But yeah, I struggled a little bit at the beginning, and over time figured out the traffic side, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to quit on the job board. I'm just going to focus on traffic.
Okay. Yeah. So that was early 2000s when you first got into marketing. Wow.
Yes, early 2000s.
Wow. Wow. So that must things must have been a little bit
2000 and-
different back then.
2001 to be exact.
2001. Wow. Okay. That's pretty amazing. So we got to kind of go through the parts here. So 2001 to now, obviously a lot has happened as
Yeah.
far as you being an entrepreneur and business. So what are some of the cliff notes here? Some of the parts of that journey that are most important.
I learned a few big valuable lessons. One, don't try to take shortcuts. I used to try to use like black hat techniques to try to get rankings really fast and just climb my way to the top. Not the best approach, not smart. Eventually you get whacked, and you should take the long-term approach, because if I took the long-term approach from day one, I would have had a much bigger business. The second thing I learned is, and this one it took me a long time to learn, brands are super important. If you look at the most popular search queries on Google, majority of them are brands. Great product, great service does amazing to your marketing, and you can't take it for granted. The third thing that I really learned, and this one was the toughest one that took me time to really focus and practice, was focus. You do too many things too soon, nothing's really going to end up happening.
Okay. So what was the? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
And once I started focusing on my business career, my marketing career, focusing on what matters, not chasing the newest thing, things started to grow and become much better for me.
Right. So what was the first brand that really took off for you?
Crazy Egg, and well, probably not first real brand. Our first company that really took off was an ad agency called ACS back in the day. We no longer own it. That started taking off, and that did well. And we got that business to a few million in revenue really quickly. Didn't know how to scale it to 10, 20 million or anything like that. The next business that did decently well for us was a brand called Crazy Egg. We still have it today. And over time, just being in a market for 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 years, your brand really builds up. People keep using your product or service. It adds up. The next one that did all right was Kiss Metrics. That one failed due to FTC investigations, class action lawsuit over data privacy. We didn't really do anything, not even really. We did not do anything to on data privacy or sell data or anything like that. But we used this cookie approach that helped reduce our server expenses by like 30%. And people frowned upon it. And once we found out that you're not supposed to end up doing it, we stopped. But what we had the class action mainly for wasn't just a cookie, but they said if we had Macy's as a client, hypothetically, we were selling the data to Nordstrom's. And with the FTC investigation, the government found that we weren't doing anything wrong, so we passed with flying colors. And then I learned if you're in a lawsuit, whether you're doing something right or wrong, you still got to pay quote unquote legal fees. It's not the government's actually easier to deal with. And believe it or not, it was actually cheaper to settle than it was to spend the legal fees. And they knew that because we had
Interesting.
insurance. So they're like, look, I remember the lawyers calling us like, look, you spend some money, your insurance will spend the rest. Settle. It'll be cheaper and easier. And I was like, why would I settle? I'm actually right. And then I quickly realized you want to spend $500,000 to $1 million battling it out, or 50 grand of your own money and 500 grand of the insurance company's money. Like, basic math, right? You spend the
Yeah.
50 grand and settle. At least 50 grand for that came from our pocket. And then the latest brand is, and this is my full focus, is called ad agency called NP Digital. We're 700, 800 employees. We're global. And the business is going well, as good as it could be in this market when people like cutting marketing budgets.
Yeah, we can definitely get into that. Yeah. So the first ad agency you had, how similar is it to what you're doing at Neil Patel Digital today?
Very similar. We're just doing it better and at scale.
Okay.
It was small, right? A few million in revenue versus a 9-figure revenue company. There's a big difference.
Okay. Yeah. So this goes down to focus. So I'm assuming, your focus right now is on NP Digital, and you probably don't have a lot of other side projects. You're not selling courses. You're not doing masterminds. You're just purely focused in on this right now.
It's like focus on selling courses, or just sell one contract for $5 million a year, or $6 or $10 million a year, right? I'll take the bigger contract.
Yeah. Well, let's talk logistically about how you would execute that big of a contract. What size team is required? What systems are required to be able to do that? I mean, that's a pretty big undertaking.
It's just skill. Typically, bigger contracts just usually mean either more divisions of a corporation or more regions of a corporation. So think of what you would do on a smaller contract for 100 grand, 200 grand, 500 grand a year, and you don't have to add tons more account managers, but you're going to have to add more SEO people, more pay-per-click people, more email marketing people, more conversion optimization, whatever you're selling them on. Typically, it's when you're getting the bigger contracts, you're selling a little bit of everything or quite a bit of everything, and your goal is to just deliver on it.
Right. So,
but the bigger part is not actually how to scale up to that from an operational standpoint. It's just more people. The harder part is how do you get them? And typically a lot of those kind of contracts are built from reputation and relationships. So if you look at a lot of our executive team, they were C-levels or presidents or executives at larger corporations in our space. So we hire a lot of people who are executives from Dentsu, WPP, Omnicom, right? We're taking people from the holding companies because not only do they have the experience managing, dealing with those clients, scaling out the businesses on a global scale, they also have the relationships, which helps you get more RFPs in business.
Interesting. Yeah. So you're not going to be able to get these types of big fish by just getting some little lead generation side or some traditional inbound technique that we would use would not work.
All right. So check this out. I haven't checked my analytics in months. All right. Seriously, for neilpatel.com. I get millions of visitors, whether it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. For enterprise contracts, can you guess how many of them come from the website?
I would guess virtually none.
Close. A little bit more than 77% come from referrals, RFPs, or employees. Yeah, and it's going down each and every year, right? So that 77 will probably eventually become 90-something%.
Yeah. Because I'm assuming the journey for them to eventually become that type of lead is very long, because they probably maybe watch something from you, then they talk to someone who knows you, and it's this big, long business development process it's a very long journey.
Yeah, but even if it's not a long journey, people don't sign the large contracts usually without going through RFP processes or procurements. There's systems and procedures in places for companies to sign big contracts. 100 grand contract, no problem. You can generate a ton of them from inbound. You want 5, 10, $20 million contracts. It's much, much harder to generate them from inbound marketing or even paid advertising. It's like Accenture. They do a ton of advertising. Do you really think they're generating majority of their revenue from having their logo plastered on the FedEx Cup golf tournament? No.
No, definitely not. So let's just take an example client of that size. Like, what is the sales cycle? How long does that sales cycle look from beginning to end?
Quick end, if you're lucky, 3 months. Bless you. Bless you. A long end, 6 months to a year.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Yeah.
3 months is really short. Realistically, most of them are 6 months to a year.
Yeah. And so let's go on the low end of 3 months. Like, how many touch points are we talking to get to a closed deal?
I don't know. And here's why I say I don't know. It's not that I'm not involved in the process. It's because there's so many people involved in the process. You're pulling people from different departments to help you with pitches and phone calls and follow-ups, and then you're dealing with not just one or two people on the other end. You may be dealing with, you know, 6, 7, 10 people in marketing, and then they bring in people from different countries or regions or different divisions. Then they bring in procurement. So there's a lot of different people that you're talking to, a lot of different touch points, and sometimes, actually not sometimes, a lot of times, not everyone is on the call at the same time.
Interesting. So I would assume that for
You're not talking about like 5 or 10 touch points, right? It's substantially more.
Yeah. It's a lot
And
of
you're
moving
putting in a
parts.
lot of money to try to close a deal too. It's not like, oh, you put in $5,000 worth of hours to close a deal. Like some of these deals, you're putting in 100 plus $200,000-300,000 worth of hours to try to close a deal. Some of the really big ones.
Yeah. And I'm assuming just to be able to even develop the type of proposal that you would need to even win a deal like that, it's going to be some sort of custom build. It's going to be pretty intense.
Everything is.
Yeah.
It is analyzing a lot of numbers and data rooms and all that kind of stuff. And you may not be paying money to try to close and win those deals, but you're paying for a lot of people's time, and they're spending that time on closing a deal. So if you don't close it, they just spend all these hours on something that produces no revenue. That's how you get to the expensive number.
So is your sales division separate from your account managers, or are those blended together?
Separate.
Okay.
We keep it all separate, but account managers also have a book of business and they got to upsell.
Okay.
Sales focus on new business, account managers focus on existing business. Sales sometimes gets involved in existing business, but rarely. And funny enough, a lot of our sales reps were previous account managers. So they're experts themselves when it comes to whatever they're selling. So like, let's say I'm making this up, Ford on a whole digital performance marketing suite, SEO, pay-per-click, social media, organic and paid, email marketing, conversion rate optimization, data analytics. The list goes on and on, right? Our sales guys aren't a salesperson. They're more so industry experts that we have them handle sales. They started their career doing the actual work, maybe then eventually going to account management, and then we try to bring them over into sales.
Interesting. So, because it's probably better for them to have the nuanced understanding of these technical skills, which then makes it easier for them to be able to actually hold their weight if a client has technical questions.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Now, let me ask you, because you probably have a lot of experience with this. So, I learned a while ago that there's a big difference between people that have hard skills and people who have soft skills. And something I learned when working with clients was it's not a great idea to use someone as operating from the soft skills and the hard skills and having one person try to do both of those things. So like, for example, having an SEO also be an account manager. I realized that kind of needed to be divided out. So can you explain why that is and why you need to have that separated out?
Sure. So SEO may be attention to detail, really good at optimizing code, but they may struggle with client communication, reporting, building up rapport. Well, account manager may not be in the weeds as much, but they may be amazing at maintaining the relationship, creating reporting, communicating with them, figuring out overall strategy beyond just SEO and where the business needs to go, and understanding business sense versus just quote unquote SEO or marketing, and understanding the roadmap that the company needs to take in order to achieve their goals, right? So you need different people in different roles, because without that, you're not going to give a customer what they really want. It's hard to do that with smaller accounts, like someone paying you $3,000 a month. It's much easier when someone's paying you $1 million a year, or 5 million, or whatever the number is.
Right. Yeah. So do you think that account managers, like the skills, the soft skills that are required to be a good account manager, do you think that can be trained, or you think that's pretty inherent in certain people?
It can potentially be trained. That I don't know if it can or can't. We found that when we hire, most of them were naturally that way, and it's their personality type.
Yeah, that's definitely seen the same thing. Okay, so let's kind of shift gears. So I want to talk more about let's call it your marketing strategy that you use personally. And I know most of your business does come from more traditional means, like we discussed, but you do produce a lot of content, so we need to talk about that, right? So let's talk about. I want to know, what systems do you have in place to produce that level of content on a quantity and even a quality basis? Obviously, you must have really good infrastructure to be able to do that.
Not as much as you think. So there's Pasquale, who films my content for my long form. There's AJ, who films my short form. There's Salo and some of the team help come up with ideas. And that's really it. We have Salo manages a contractor who comes out with my YouTube outlines. My YouTube outlines are title of idea. He'll type out an intro and he'll create like 6 points with some stats. And that's it. I got to literally freestyle it and pretty much create a video. Same with my social media content. They just tell me a topic and I just riff. And then the team worries about posting it, optimizing it, all that kind of stuff. As for SEO, blog content, text-based content, I write a post roughly once a week, post it on a Tuesday. I have a team that goes and updates all my old content. We spend way more time updating old content than writing new content.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So you're pretty much hyper focused on just the actual creation, then you're handing it off to your team to tackle all that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. All right. Now let's talk about a couple quick things here, which obviously in the SEO industry, people are going to know about this a lot more than others. But so you acquired Ubersuggest, and then you recently acquired Answer the Public. Okay. So let's start with Ubersuggest. How much has that benefited the brand? How is that side of the business doing on the software side?
So it's hard to put it one-to-one, but roughly 40% of our agency customers use Ubersuggest. So do they find us and then use Ubersuggest, or they use Ubersuggest and then they find us? It's probably a mixture of both, but it's actually drove quite a bit of revenue from that aspect.
Was that the intentional?
The public, we're hoping for...
Yeah, go ahead.
It wasn't intentional at the beginning, but that's why we bought Answer the Public, to replicate the same thing. Okay. Has it happened yet with Answer the Public? No. Will we hope it happens within the next year or two? Yes. But is it guaranteed? No. So it's an $8.6 million bet.
It's a pretty big bet.
Time will tell.
Yeah, that's interesting, because it's probably hard to quantify in the short term. You're going to need a lot of time to be able to see how that unfolds.
Yeah, we also overpaid for it, right? So it wasn't doing more than 1.2 million a year when we bought it. So it's not like we got a great deal when we bought it, but more so we believed that we can generate way more revenue from consulting than we can from software.
Interesting.
Okay. Now, do we think we can get it into more EBITDA? Yeah, we think it was mismanaged. No one was focused on it. It should be at least 3-4 times bigger in EBITDA than it is. And that we'll work on fixing in the next year. And we'll see if we get it there. But the bigger thing is we weren't really worried about the EBITDA or the revenue. We were more so focusing on the consulting end. Because when we were looking at the users that use it, it's a lot of big companies, yet they don't close any revenue from those big companies.
So untapped potential then that you're trying to get into.
Bingo. That's why we bought it.
Yeah. Very interesting.
We didn't buy it for a SaaS play, to be super specific.
Yeah. You weren't just trying to get another revenue stream.
Yeah, we weren't trying to get another SaaS revenue stream. We were more so looking for something to help feed the agency more on a global basis. And when we look at Answer the Public, we'll run a similar playbook to Ubersuggest. Like, we start improving the design. We'll start playing with pricing in the next week or two. We'll start giving people search volume and CPC data for all the terms. We'll make it where they can click a button eventually and automatically generate content using like GPT. Any one of those software solutions, so that way people can have a blog post started for them. So we'll start doing all those kind of things to make the product better. We're also starting to store search data, not that it's Nathan searching, but just search data. Here's what the term marketing looked like 6 months ago, and here's what terms were popular. So you can compare over time and see what terms are becoming more popular, less popular, etc., and trending and all that kind of stuff.
Very nice. Very nice. So when you do this acquisition, are you inheriting the existing team from that tool, or are you starting from scratch?
No team. That was the biggest problem with it. They didn't focus on it. They're like, oh, it does like $100,000+ a month in profit. I'm like, it doesn't really do $100,000 a month in profit. You have no one on that company. So if you actually had to add people, which you usually do because there's support requests, etc., the profit goes way down. That's why I said we really overpaid for it. We paid at least 8 times multiple on a company that churns quite a bit of EBITDA.
And right. Yeah. Well, that's so what would be
At
the
least.
reason to pay? Yeah. I mean, what would, so you must really see potential then to pay a premium like that. You must really see some long-term potential.
As I mentioned, UberSuggest generates 40% of our clients that pay us 40% use UberSuggest. We're a 9-figure revenue company. You can do the math on how much consulting revenue that it can potentially drive. Answer the Public had 70% of the traffic as UberSuggest. It was just a math equation.
Yeah. Very interesting. Okay. Yeah. Let's shift gears because, you have a very big reputation in the SEO industry. Everyone's very well aware of that. But you also have people who are haters, right? And I even get haters on my stuff, and my audience is tiny compared to yours. So how do you deal with that?
Honestly, I don't see most of haters. I ignore it. I don't waste my time on that kind of stuff. I focus on the business, providing clients results, making sure we go above and beyond to delight the clients no matter what, and being there for them. Like, I don't really worry about the haters or what people say, or I honestly don't read most of it. I honestly don't really even see most of it. No one really shows it to me, so I don't really know about 99% of my haters, and it doesn't really bother me.
Yeah. Out of sight, out of mind, I guess. It's the way to do it.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because I implemented a policy recently where like I'm done reading comments on any of my social stuff. I'm done looking, like I just made the policy. I'm just not going to look at it anymore.
Yeah, I still skim through the comments and look for the value ones, but I don't worry about the haters. Like, I don't really see haters stopping. I see it growing, and it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, the bigger you get, the more you're going to get. That's just the inevitable progression, right?
Yeah, but I've gotten hate for stuff that's not even related to me. I remember my buddy Eric Sue released some software thing or something, and people started hating on me because he released it and be like, look what Neil's doing again. I'm like, I don't even own a percentage of that business, nor is it mine. But like, he was telling me about it. I'm like, yeah, I don't really care. I just move on.
Yeah. Well, and also one thing that obviously makes your situation very unique is that you've been the face of your businesses like across the board. So is that something you want to continue to do? And what are the implications of that model?
It's less and less. The ad agency used to be called Neil Patel Digital. We changed the name to NP Digital. It's still my initials, NP, right, for Neil Patel. It also makes the name shorter. But yeah, no, I'm less and less the face. Also, the bigger contracts, let's say if Ford is paying you, they don't care about Neil Patel. They care about who specifically is working on my contract. They're part of the sales pitch. And what is their experience in my industry and what results are they going to produce? When you go for the big contracts, they actually care really heavily about the person on the accounts.
Interesting. Yeah. So you may have got them in the door though because of your face. So how much has that benefited
No,
you?
remember 77% of our business is from referrals and RFP and employees. So it's like I'm not even getting most of them in the door.
Right. But I mean, it certainly does help that you are.
It does help. It builds trust. It helps more so when we're starting off. At our size, it doesn't help as much. When you're starting off a business, it helps a lot. When you're already established, it doesn't help as much as one may think.
Right. Yeah, because I think about like Gary Vee and VaynerMedia. Like, would his media company be as big as it is if he wasn't the face of the brand? That's kind of the debate, right?
I think it helps. I definitely think it drives some of the revenue, but not as much as most people think. Yeah. Gary Vee doesn't actually talk about marketing in most of his content, right?
No,
he's talking about like how to succeed in life, how to be a better person. What do you do when you're 50 and you want to get started? You think any of these big companies that has multi-million-dollar contracts are paying him for any of the stuff he speaks about on social media? No, they're not. It's not even related. They're coming to him because of the team and the value. They do believe that he's really good at vision, storytelling, social media, marketing in general, but they're looking at the team that's working on the accounts. You want to know how VaynerMedia is getting a lot of their contracts and winning the business? I know a lot of the people that compete with them for RFPs. They undercut people in pricing. They're usually the cheaper provider in year one, and they're hoping they make their money on year two and year three and slowly increase their margins.
Yeah.
Based on their public information that they posted about their agency, mine's already larger when you're looking at from a cash flow standpoint, right? Different way of growing. Do I have a bigger brand than him? No. But again, the way most ad agencies build their revenue is relationships.
Right.
Has he done an amazing job? Yes. He's crushing it. He's done extremely well with his ad agency. What most people don't realize is it's not that he's just done well from the ad agency. Look at all the ancillary businesses that he's also created. What was the one that sold? One sold to Amex, I believe it was. One sold to some other wine company or something like that. But he's created some nice businesses that, you know, have sold for a lot of money.
Yeah. And obviously on the back of his personal brand, right? So
some of them, yes. I'm not trying to discount his personal brand. I think he's done one of the best jobs out there for a personal brand. But more so, what I'm giving him credit for that I don't think a lot of people give credit for is personal brand is part of it, but he's done an amazing job with operations and execution. Right. Personal branding is just a piece of it. If he couldn't actually do a great job operating and executing, there wouldn't be the businesses of this scale. There's a lot of personal brands out there and people that are much more popular than him on Instagram and Facebook, but they don't have the skill set on picking a big enough TAM for a business or figuring out how to build an operational team or an executive team that can go and execute on it really fast or helping him out with strategy. There's a lot of things that he does to make it successful that's outside of the brand that are super important that most people overlook that I think is a big key to his success. Yes, brand is super important, but without those other elements, he wouldn't do even 1/10 as good as he is doing today. And if you look at influencers out there, there's a lot more people on social media that are way popular than Gary Vee. And again, I'm not trying to knock him. I'm actually trying to give him credit because a lot of those other people don't make a fraction of the money he's making because he understands trends, operations, execution, and all of these other elements that you need to create something that's super successful, right? It's not just brand. That's the point I'm getting at is those other elements are, in my opinion, more important than just brand. And he has been doing those other elements extremely well as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people with huge audiences that don't have big revenue businesses. So that's clearly not
majority
the only
of the people. It's not even the majority of the part. Majority of the people I know who have big brands don't make a killing.
Yeah.
The majority of the people with big brands that make a killing make it because they're a celebrity and they're getting paid for movies or sports or music, as well as sponsorships like going into TV commercials, right? It's usually not from business. Yeah. What Gary's done well is he's used his brand to create businesses and then flip the business. Like that, what was that? One of the companies called Resi or something like that? I forgot the name.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Done really well on that. He did really well on his NFT project, but again, with that creates a lot of expenses. That Resi business, I don't know what it was called. Well, I can actually look it up right now. Gary Vaynerchuk sells company to, I think it's Amex. Resi, the CRM. So let's look this up. Amex buys Resi. American Express intentions to announce today for $1 million. I know it's more than $1 million. I don't know the exact price point, but either way, it was out there somewhere. I forgot. He mentions it somewhere. Some article mentions it. But either way, he's done really well and has made 9 figures from a lot of other stuff that no one talks about. And all I'm trying to get at is a brand is only a small piece of the pie. You need the other things to do really well. If you look at people like him and me, and I don't have as good of a brand as Gary does, it's the other stuff that really builds a company. If you look at most of the big companies out there, the largest ones, it's not a personal brand that builds that organization.
Yeah. So you obviously, what's probably helped you a lot is just time doing this as well. You've had such a long time doing this, so much experience compounding that has led you to this point, right? So now, if you were starting today, would you have done it the same way, or would you have done things differently? Would you have started with the personal brand, or would you have decided, no, I'm not going to do personal brand. I'm just going to go kind of corporation style?
That's really hard to say because all the previous stuff I've done has allowed me to have enough money to make NP Digital my fastest growing business. And with NP Digital, I don't know how much I spent. More than 3 million. My guess is maybe less than 5 million that I put of my own capital into the business to get it up and running. I didn't really keep track of some of it. It was at different times, and some of it got repaid, and then I had to put more money because sometimes you have ups and downs. But when I look at the numbers and my growth, you know, the first year, I think we did like 5 million in revenue the first year, 5-6 million. As an agency, I think second year was like 15, 16, if I had to guess. I don't have the exact numbers, but it was something like that. You look at my CEO, who we pay our arm and a leg to, he's well worth it. He drove $7+ million in revenue last year by himself. Right? So if I had to do it over again, and I knew this going into it, I would hire people who are really experienced and have done it multiple times. For example, my CEO was a president of iProspect, which is a division in Dentsu, and I think he had to deal with 4,000 or 5,000 employees, right? I don't know how big iProspect was in revenue. If I had to guess, somewhere between 500 and 800 million. I kind of have a rough idea, but it's somewhere around there. Hiring people who have already done it just gets you bigger much faster, but it costs a lot of money. And if I had to do it again, forget personal brand, I would just go hire people who have built successful companies in my space before and just pay them an arm and a leg. That's what I would do from day one. Forget the personal brand. What I'm talking about is just the quickest way to build a business. It's also one of the most expensive ways because those people are super expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what about the challenge though, if you're starting out and you don't have the capital to hire the best CEO or the best talent? How do you reconcile that?
You usually can't hire the best because those people, here's the other caveat. They also don't want to be in part of joining a startup and starting from day zero. They're used to working in their corporate life and they're used to managing a lot of people. And that's what they're good at. And they're usually not good at building something from 0 to 10, 20, 30 million. They're usually good at scaling something from like 50 to 100 or 100 to 500 or 500 to a billion. So you got to hire the best people you can for the time.
Yeah. Based on your current stage that you're at.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think it's important to note too that like, you going to $5 million in the first year, obviously, would you agree that was because of all of the stuff that you had done prior to that led to that? It wasn't just like one day you woke up and you started a $5 million agency.
Yeah. Right. No, and like 99% of the revenue came from a personal brand. We could have even had more. We couldn't hire people fast enough. Second year, we were able to scale a little bit more on employee count. That's why you saw even more of a growth on the second year. Third year, we even had crazy growth as well. Fourth year, we had crazy growth. Even fifth year, we had crazy growth.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I know I've watched you over the years and I've watched the different business models that you've kind of had and different things you've done. But what led you to want to start an agency at all? Because I know at one point you weren't even doing any agency, correct?
Yeah, I didn't want to, but a lot of inbound inquiries for me to work on consulting for really a lot of large brands. That was it. It was just, we had so much demand of people hitting me up, emailing me personally that were like, maybe we should respond to these people and do something. That's where the personal brand did help.
Okay. Yeah. So it wasn't some like huge revelation. It was just like, hey, we've got demand, so why don't we just do this?
You're talking about like 10+ years of trying to build a personal brand and then cashing in on it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even that easy. It was so much. Even the first year, there was like little to no profit. You'd be like, 5 million in revenue. Literally almost no profit. Second year, some profit, but not a ton. We were just dumping it back in to grow.
Yeah. So where was that capital being reinvested into the agency?
Expansion. So like right now, different countries, regions. Right now we're United States, Canada, Brazil. I'm going in my head, each continent I'm breaking down where we are. UK, Germany, India, Australia. So we're at 7. We're about to put an offer out for someone to lead up Singapore.
Hmm.
We're trying to find someone to head up the rest of Latin America for Spanish speaking. Usually for Spanish speaking, you focus on Mexico, Colombia, and I think Argentina are the three. So we'd start those this year. We are interviewing someone today for Portugal. We may have someone to run up EMA for us, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and expand fashion, get it to France and Italy. We're also looking for Spain. We have feelers out right now for Indonesia, Thailand, and Malaysia, but we're going after pretty much the top 50 countries by GDP, most of them. We're avoiding some, like we won't touch Russia. We won't touch China. We'll partner with people in regions like China. And it's not because of like we see anything wrong with China, just political issues. As a startup investing all the capital, then having issues, it's a big expense and a hit for us. So it's easier to just partner with a local agency there that's Chinese. But yeah, we'll start going after the major regions like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, how much does it differ from, obviously, let's say you're pitching a US company versus pitching an Indian based company? Uh, Obviously, the retainers and the currency exchange, things are probably radically different. So, how do you handle that?
No, but it's all local base. So our India
Mm,
team pitches India companies. Like we work with Tata in India. It's because we have
mm,
people in India. We don't have India to outsource US work to India. We have India to work on India companies.
right.
Our Indian agency alone, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but does millions and millions and millions a year. It does over $1 million a year alone just in profit, right? So it's a good
Mm,
size for a startup. But like you can scale these regions to making a good amount of money. There's a lot of big businesses in countries like Brazil or India or Malaysia or Thailand that most of us never could think about.
right. Interesting.
Like we look at
Okay.
the US and Europe and all these regions, it's like, oh yeah, there's not that many big companies in Romania. There's no money there. Well, there is. Look at their GDP. It's a question of what are you doing marketing for? Imagine if you were in 100 countries as a company and each region only produced 2 million a year in profit. Doesn't seem like a lot, but that's 200 million a year. 100 regions, 2 million a year. Even if it was a million a year per region, 100 regions, that's $100 million a year in EBITDA. It adds up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely true. You're thinking big. So, so how about the day to day operations? Because I know you're not
I
operating a lot
don't
of the
day to
time.
day. I,
Yeah.
I spend 60, 70, 80 hours on the business a week, but I don't do day to day. When I mean day to day is I'm not on the management calls. I don't do the stuff that I don't like. I focus mainly on like client work, results, strategies, tactic, marketing. I enjoy it. To me, that's fun. People are like, dealing with like client marketing and figuring out new strategies to grow a client's traffic. That sucks. But for me, that's fun.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with finance and accounting and like HR and all that kind of stuff. That's the stuff that I tend not to deal with.
Yeah, so
But
do
you need
your
to deal
day
with that, right? Like legal
right.
and all that stuff. Someone has to deal with it.
Yeah. So are your days similar or are they different most days? That's something always new that you're working on.
Similar, mainly phone calls. Like talking with my
Oh.
team. Oh, you tried this strategy out for this client. How about you try this one out? This could be really cool. If it worked, roll it out to all clients. Like just
Right.
brainstorming, having fun with them. That's the stuff that I love.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. So at this point, like obviously you're not doing this for money anymore. Let's be honest here. You're not doing this for money. So what's making you do this?
I love
Why
it.
have
It's
these
fun.
ambitions? Yeah.
It's just fun. We're a little different. Like we don't care for like multiple homes and all that kind of stuff or Ferraris. We have nice homes. We have a house in Beverly Hills we never live in. My wife and I are thinking about getting rid of it. My wife focuses all her time on raising our children and philanthropy. She, heads up some organizations and has some fun doing that. And eventually we'll give away all our money. We don't think our kids need it. We think other people need it. But I love making it. It's fun for me. It's a game. My wife loves giving it away and our kids can go earn it like everyone else.
Yeah. That's a good point. Well, let's kind of think about it is how were you brought up? Like is this kind of embedded in your family to be kind of this
My
obsessive
mom was on.
worker? Okay. Yeah.
They all were workaholics. Then most of my family didn't donate as much, but they also didn't make as much. Different times, right? It was easier for my parents than it was for my grandparents, right? Every generation, the American dream is it gets easier and the grass is greener on this side, and hopefully it's easier for future generations. Now, I don't think it's necessarily true. I think it's actually harder these days for new people that are being brought up to buy a home or do a lot of things, but hopefully people who have money can give back and help all the other people who aren't in as much don't have as much privilege. Like I look at like education system. What happens if we can give amazing education to everyone, minorities, inner city kids, everyone? What would it do? You probably would have less crime, more people who are successful. The world would be a much better place. But why can't that happen? If the government can't do it, why can't a lot of people with money use their power and their money to help out? There's a lot of things that a lot of good people can do with their money. And I'm hoping more and more people do it. And if you look at what my wife and I do, we actually don't do that much compared to the grand scheme of things. You look at what people like Bill Gates or Warren Buffett are doing, they do much more than my wife and I. I don't think we'll ever be able to do what they'll be able to do because we don't have the capital and the resources they do. But if everyone can just do their part, hopefully it makes the world a better place, as cheesy and cliche as it may sound.
Yeah. Yeah. So are you trying to, with your children, is your goal to kind of teach them the entrepreneurial way, or are you just going to let them kind of figure it out on their own?
It depends if you ask me or my wife. My wife wants to just raise really good human beings. I will tell my 3-year-old daughter, like, she'll want something, like, negotiate with me. Why should I give it to you? What am I going to get?
Right.
Right? So, like, I like teaching a business, but for me, it's a passion. My wife isn't as obsessed about our kids have to do this or be this in their career or make this much money. I just need to raise good human beings that, are ethical, try to help other people out, and have their head on straight. And my wife is 10 times better than me, maybe 100 times better than me at raising our kids. So I try not to really push them in one direction or another, but I have some fun and I teach them some skills. Or if my daughter wants to watch cartoons, I'll be like, all right, I'll give you 10 minutes of cartoon if you watch CNBC or Bloomberg for 10 minutes. Right? And maybe she's not going to soak in that much, but I'm going to try to do whatever I can to make them entrepreneurs. If they don't want to be, I'm not going to really push that much.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much all I have. Well, thank you so much. This has been very, very useful. And I think you're going to help a lot of people who've been following you for a long time to kind of see the inner workings of what you're doing. Now, the last question is, well, what's the 5-10 year goal? Do you want to keep writing this out, NP Digital, or do you have like a long-term vision of like, I'm going to sell this thing at X?
No, just keep writing it out and having fun.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, but just keep growing and having fun.
Well, thank you so much, Neil, and congrats on all your business success. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.